Welcome to Inside the 12. I'm your host, Pete Souza. Let's bring in my partner in crime from the road, King McClure. There he is. We got some weather here in Texas, so we got King being safe. What's happening, King?
Man, listen, I'm snowed in right now, Pete. It's been interesting seeing all this snow on the ground, something we're not used to seeing in North Texas. However, I'm glad to be here virtually, miss you in person, but we're still here.
We are still here. By the way, if anybody wants to know about King's reputation as a hooper, I got to give a mention to my man Chris Patola. We were doing the Baylor game against Cincinnati a couple days ago, and I said, "Did you ever cover King?" He's like, "Cover him? I had a game where he had 7 threes. 7." I was like, "Wow, okay." I didn't know King had the range like that.
I actually remember that. It was him and Kevin Connors. Kevin Connors, was the play-by-play guy, and at Oklahoma State, senior year,
7 threes. Seven threes.
I was on fire.
All right, well, let's keep the heat going. We got a packed show today. How about we get it started with some takeaways from the men's side? Iowa State and Kansas continue to roll. We will have more on them later. Oklahoma State getting a much-needed win against Kansas State. And UCF, Keshawn Hall, got a game-sealing block to take down Colorado. King, though, TCU scoring just 46 points against Houston. How about the Cougars in that defense?
And that's what was so impressive about the whole thing, Pete. I mean, in 7 straight games, they have held their opponents to under 56 points per game. They suffocate you on the defensive side. I mean, one-on-one, they are extremely good. They are one of the best teams in the country in guarding the ball one-on-one. And if they just so happen to get beat, you have to deal with Jawan Roberts at the rim, Javier Francis at the rim, JoJo Tugler at the rim. This defense, this Houston Cougars defense, is one of the best in the country. And the way that they guard and how physical they are, the attack of the ball, they're hard to deal with. And I mean, for lack of better words, Pete, it's just 40 minutes of hell. Shout out to Mark Nolan.
Yeah, I got to give big-time props to Houston and what they're doing. A lot of teams stepping up this past week. But if we're talking takeaways, the biggest winner has to be the Arizona Wildcats. They went into conference play at 6-5. They have rattled off a bunch of wins, roaring back-to-back games. They took down ranked opponents, started with Cincinnati, and then they did it again against West Virginia. What's gotten into these Wildcats?
You know, I think number one is the confidence. I think that after the first big win, their first Big 12 win, you can kind of see they're playing with a different swagger. And a part of that, I contribute that to the moving the ball well. It has more of a flow. It's not sticking like it used to. I think early on, Caleb Love was trying to get his. KJ Lewis was trying to get his. Bradley was trying to get his, even though he's probably their best distributor. But I think now they're making plays for each other. Yes, all of these guys are talented one-on-one. But I think that when they get into the paint, they're able to get others involved, not necessarily make those isolation buckets. I think that is when they're at their best. And Tommy Lloyd has finally figured it out of how to get them to move the basketball. And you're right, you're seeing multiple guys contribute, whether that be KJ Lewis off the bench now, whether that be Jaden Bradley, or whether that be Caleb Love.
Yeah, you got to give Tommy Lloyd credit. Being out there last week, he was really excited to get into conference play. Even on that 6-5 record, I think he knew that his team had a lot in store. Okay, well, a lot of teams we've talked about. I mentioned Cincinnati. It's been a tough start to conference play for the Bearcats. They started the season 10-1, but they've lost 3 straight in the Big 12. You know, like what that can be like, King. That lost to Arizona knocked them out of the AP poll, and then they slipped again at Baylor, 68-48. Wes Miller told us before the game, before that Baylor game, I'm not worried about my team. It seems like he might be a little worried now after that 20-point loss. What does he have to do to get his team back on track?
He has to find a second scorer outside of Dan Skillings, because Skillings has been terrific. He has been consistent. And coming into conference play, Lukosius was their guy. Lukosius was the guy that they get the ball to, can knock it down from deep, a versatile scorer. He was on a tear. But as of recently, Lukosius is under 10 points for the last 4 games. So they have to find a way to get Lukosius back going.
Quick question for you. Don't have too much time on it, but what's it like? It seems like Lukosius has gone to the top of the scouting report, and it's made life real difficult for him. What happens when you rise to the top of the opposing scouting report?
It's a major difference. Teams guard you differently. They put more of an emphasis on you. They know all your tendencies, everything you're going to do. It becomes 10 times harder because you were the focal point of the offense.
All right, one of the teams that stepped up last week is Texas Tech. After losing that home opener to UCF in conference play, the Red Raiders went on the road and they brought home 2 W's. On Saturday, they absolutely destroyed Utah 93-65, and then they beat BYU 72-67. King, I know you know Coach McCaslin. How you feeling about his team right now?
I think they're looking good. I think Darion Williams has stepped up to the plate. He almost did one of those things where he called his team out in a certain way in a press conference, and I think they have responded extremely well. You have to want to guard. You have to want to play defense. If you're Texas Tech, that is what you do. That is how you have built success in your program. So now these guys are playing defense at a high level, and what I've been most impressed with is Darion Williams is coming to play. Darion Williams is showing us that he can be that lead offensive guy, and he can step up and rise to the occasion. JT Toppin has not been good. He's still trying to get his feet under him, still trying to get his rhythm and his flow back. But once he can get there, mixed with Darion Williams, what he's been doing, and Chance McMillan, I mean, these guys right here have a legitimate chance to make a run in this conference.
Yeah, Coach McCaslin's like a psychologist. He knew if he challenged his team and Darion Williams after that UCF loss, they were going to respond, and they did. One thing that he's mentioned before, and he told us before that Utah game, it's all about point guards. And Elijah Hawkins has really stepped up for them, and I think as he continues to progress and play well, it will not hurt that Texas Tech team. So much to get into. 2 of the top contenders in the conference are riding high after big wins this week. We look at the keys to Kansas's bounce back and how Iowa State could have a new star on their hands. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Inside the 12. I'm Pete Souza. Joining me from the road is the Hooper, Baylor superstar, and college basketball analyst King McClure. This week, number 3 Iowa State and number 11 Kansas both proved why they are among the best teams and teams to beat in the Big 12. The Jayhawks opened up conference play losing to West Virginia at home 62-61. It was their first conference opening loss since 1991. You got to dust off the record book for that one. The big question, King, is how would they bounce back? Well, 99-48 beatdown against UCF. You were on hand for that one. What did you learn?
Yeah, well, one thing talking to Bill Self is you knew who 4 out of the 5 starters are going to be: KJ Adams, Dickinson, Mayo, and DeJuan Harris. They have been looking for an answer out of that third guard spot, that last starting spot. And he has a guy like Shaquille Moore, transfer from Mississippi State, who, last year at Mississippi State wasn't necessarily an offensive guy, but one thing that he could do is defend the basketball. And that is why Bill Self chose Shaquille Moore. He's getting those hustle plays. He's getting those loose balls. He can knock down a shot. He's going to guard the opposing team's best player. Defensively, Kansas goes to a different level when this young man is on the floor. Shaquille Moore is an absolute difference maker for the Jayhawks, and he just plays his role. I think that is what Bill Self is looking for more than anything: consistency in playing your role, and he is getting both of those things from this young man.
Yeah, looking at their last few games, it really does feel like Zeke Mayo also has settled into his role. He put up 23 points in their win against Arizona State Wednesday night. How impressed have you been by him?
Man, I've been so impressed. This young man can flat out hoop. And when you talk to Bill Self before the game, when I did the UCF game, he said, man, this man is not the most talented guy, but he said his IQ is through the roof. And I think you see that every single night, game in, game out. He is making those plays. He doesn't overcomplicate the game. He comes off a pick and roll. If he's open, he's shooting it. If he's not, he is diming it off, dropping it down to Hunter Dickinson. Zeke Mayo is exceeding expectations, and I expect him to have an all Big 12 season as he continues to progress. But this young man has done a lot for Bill Self, and I know Bill Self is loving every moment of it.
Well, he's got to love Hunter Dickinson, too. Not necessarily flashy what Dickinson does, but he continues to be a problem in the paint for opposing teams and also for opposing guards. He's setting ball screens on. But the last 6 games, you were talking about 18 points a game, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks.
I mean, he's just Mr. Reliable. That's just how you got to phrase it. He's reliable. He's consistent. You throw him on the floor, you know what you're going to get from this young man. You don't have to question it. He steps out and shoots the 3 a little bit, probably a little bit less than he did last year, which I'm really glad. He's more in the paint because he's very dominant. But he's Mr. Reliable year in, in, year out. He's the same player. He is who he is. You know what to get, what you're getting from him.
All right, number 3, Iowa State is now 13-1. They look like a team primed for a national title run, led by senior guard Keshawn Gilbert. The Cyclones are getting it done on both sides of the ball. How about the fact, though, we talk about defense usually with them. They got 86 points a game. That's good for 10th in the nation. And they're also, again, the calling card defense, right? Giving up just 64 points. One of their biggest keys to their success is the play of Joshua Jefferson King. He is a guy who gets it done in different ways night after night.
He's almost your Swiss Army knife, and what a luxury it is to have a guy like this, man, who can, like you said, can do so much for you. Defensively, he can lock you down. Offensively, he can drop dimes. He can also score. I mean, he can do so much. Honestly, he's one of those guys, Pete, that whatever the team needs that night, he's more than willing to do. I mean, he can get steals in the passing lane. He can switch 1 through 4. He can crash the glass. Like, this young man does everything. He can step out and shoot the 3 and space the floor. He's tough. He's almost like the glue guy that can also score, because I hate to label dudes glue guys, because when you label them that, like when you think of all the good glue guys, none of them really score the basketball. But Joshua Jefferson can actually score. So he's more than just a glue guy, but he means so much to TJ Altenberger and the Cyclone team.
Well, you mentioned how much he means. What's it like to have a guy on your team who can sacrifice parts of their own game, right, their own production, or for the team to do whatever the team needs?
It's a luxury. I mean, it's a luxury if you're a coach. It's a luxury to play with. I mean, you know this young man's going to give everything he has every single time he steps on the floor, and you know what to expect. And honestly, if something is not going right on the floor, if a player, if your leading scorer is not doing his job, well, guess what? This young man is going to do his job. If the leading defender is not doing his job, well, a guy like Joshua Jefferson is going to guard the best player and do his job. So to have this guy is almost like a safety net, because, you know, he can do so much on the floor. But Joshua Jefferson is a huge reason why this Cyclone team is destined for a national championship run.
Yeah, it seems like they've been building year after year after year. It'd be really cool to see what they can do down the stretch this year. A lot to keep an eye on for 2 teams looking to make a deep run into March this season, talking about Kansas and Iowa State. We got to take a quick timeout. When we come back, Ann O'Neill joins us. She's getting some shots up, getting us up to speed on the Big 12 women's hoops action. That is next on Inside the 12. We are back and better than ever on Inside the 12. It is time to talk women's hoops. Let's take a look at scores from Wednesday night. Number 11, TCU taking down Kansas. That's thanks to a monster 30-point, 14-rebound game from Sedona Prince. And Iowa State, you see them there getting back into the win column, defeating Arizona State 90-83. We gave King McClure a breather to bring on our next guest. She is former Iowa State All-American, and now we are lucky to have her as an ambassador for the Big 12 and women's basketball everywhere. Ann O'Neill, welcome back to the show.
So excited to be here with you. Excited to be here.
Well, we got a lot to get to, and I want to start just from a curiosity standpoint, from a big picture perspective. Feels like everywhere you look, Big 12 women's teams are making an impact. How hot is this conference right now?
Well, it's hot, and we just had 4 teams ranked in the AP top 25. And also we have Oklahoma State that's receiving votes. So there's a lot of eyes on the Big 12. Another thing that people are watching for is the net rankings. They come out every day. And what the net means is the NCAA evaluation tool. And this is how we get those seedings in March Madness of how competitive games are, how efficient the offense and defense are for teams. And right now in the Big 12, we have consistently had 6 teams in the top 30 of that ranking. And again, why that matters for women's basketball is that the seedings, the top 16, get a home court advantage in the NCAA tournament. And we're keeping our eye on the net rankings as well and seeing how those seedings might play out in March.
Let me just tell you, if people don't stop you on the street, I appreciate the refresher on the net, because a lot of times I think we hear it so often, it's good to kind of drill down on exactly what it is. A lot of exciting matchups this past week, including a top-ranked showdown in Salt Lake City. But let's start with the overtime thriller I watched between Baylor and Arizona. What impressed you from the Bears' 81-76 win in a ruckus environment in Tucson?
Yeah, this was our first overtime game in the Big 12, and it was so fun from start to finish. It actually had that March Madness feel to it. And I got to give a shout out to the Arizona Wildcats. They had over 6,400 in attendance for this game. In Arizona, they used that crowd advantage and came back big in the fourth quarter. Senior Isis Bay hit 2 back-to-back buckets to tie the game and push it to overtime. What I love to seeing here, both Baylor and Arizona had 5 players in double figures, but the Bears had the advantage on the rebounds and hit a couple more threes, and they got the win out of that big overtime game.
Moving on now, number 12 Kansas State got a statement win against number 22 Utah, 74-47. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Kansas State, if you blink, all of a sudden they're up by 20 is what I feel like. And that's exactly what they did in the first quarter. They came out and really put a punch to it. They were up 20-7 and never looked back. And when we talk about Kansas State, a lot of times we're looking at their offense. They are the leader in assists for the nation. But I got to tell you, one of the things that's always most impressive about Kansas State is their defense. They are second in the nation for holding teams under 50 points per game. And that's exactly what they did to an incredible Utah offense, held them to 47 points. So they were impressive on both ends of the court in that win.
Yeah, and we know the superstar names, right? Ayoka Lee, Sedona Prince, Audie Crooks at Iowa State. But who are some of the players in the Big 12 fans should be learning about and on the lookout for?
Well, I'll start with one, and her nickname is Showtime Ty, and that is Ty Skinner from Arizona State. She is one of the most fun players to watch because she can break you down one-on-one, excellent at getting downhill, and she's also had 5 games where she's hit over 4 three-pointers. She really brings the energy and the heart and soul for the Sun Devils. Next up on my list is from Arizona. We got to talk about super sophomore Brea Cunningham. She is leading the nation in sophomores with field goal percentage over 65%. So if you get it to her, she is a bucket on the inside. She's also leading Arizona almost 13 points a game, 7 rebounds and 2 blocks. I see her keep getting better every time she steps on the floor for Coach Adair. And my third pick, even though I wish I could talk about more players, is Jazz Shavers from Texas Tech. She is one of those 3-level scorers. She's averaging over 15 points a game, and 15 of her 17 games so far this season have been in double figures. She is one of the main players the Lady Raiders depend on, and as a cool little stat, even Patrick Mahomes was taking note. Before the season, she signed an NIL deal with the Mahomes team and Adidas, so everybody has their eye on Shavers, and she's somebody that makes an impact both on and off the court for Texas Tech.
Some compelling content there, but I will go back to the top. You had me at Showtime. All right,
that's
it.
Right. Showtime Ty.
You have me at Showtime. All right, before we let you go, I know you have a busy week, and we have a busy week coming up ahead in Big 12 basketball. Any games you want us to keep an eye on for?
That's right. So many screens on all the time. But one for sure you've got to check out is West Virginia, number 17. That's 13-2, and they're going to play at Oklahoma State, also 13-2. So that is going to be a huge matchup. One of the top defensive teams against one of the top offensive teams in the Big 12. That's on Saturday the 11th. And for the 14th, I'm looking at Utah versus Baylor. Both teams are playing really well team basketball, and I've got that circled for the 14th.
The All-American, Ann O'Neill, thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us all around the Big 12. We really appreciate it.
Love to be here. I can't wait for the next time.
Hey, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at Hey Girl Hey Ann O'Neill on X or Instagram.
All right, we'll talk to you later, and take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
All right, awesome stuff there from Ann O'Neill. We got to take our final break. When we come back, King McClure is back to break down some of the men's conference battles coming up this weekend. Inside the 12 rolls on. I'm Pete Souza. Thanks so much for sticking with us. Baylor great King McClure is standing by. There he is. We bring him back in. King is on the road this weekend. And King, a lot of teams going to be on the road getting ready for some Big 12 play. Let's take a look at the Big 12 men's schedule. Plenty of top flight conference matchups. King, I know you're going to be on the call for one of these games. What do you got?
I got TCU BYU Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2. Make sure you tune in.
We will all make sure we tune in. All right, let's take a look at some of the other games, particularly our game of the week presented by Children's Health. Let's start Saturday. Number 3 Iowa State traveling to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. Students should be back in Lubbock, making for a very hectic, chaotic environment. Will Iowa State, who is used to the tough environment of their own, be able to handle the noise, King?
I think this might be Iowa State's first loss of the Big 12 conference play. Texas Tech playing at a great level. What better game for JT Toppin to finally get back to the JT Toppin we know and love than against the top 3 opponent in Iowa State. I think that Texas Tech could pull this off. They're going to have to make shots. Toppin's going to have to be great, but that environment's going to come into play, Pete, like you said. Students back, it will be loud, it'll be rowdy, and trust me, Texas Tech is one of the toughest places to play if you've been there.
Yeah, they will be bloodthirsty once again there in Lubbock. All right, number 12, Houston, set to take on Kansas State. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Houston has held 7 straight opponents under 56 points. What does Jerome Tang's team have to do to break that streak?
Well, they're going to have big games from their big 3, Coleman Hawkins, Howson, and McDaniels. Like, those 3 combined have to score at minimum 40 points. If that does not happen, they do not have a chance, and they will be the 8th team to be held under 56 points if those 3 not score at least 40.
Yeah, Houston has their own bucket maker in Emmanuel Sharp, shooting 48% from 3.
He's a bucket getter. He's the way that he has grown in his game from last year to this year has been so impressive. I mean, LJ Cryer, same guy, same level of effectiveness, great player, but Sharp, his efficiency has gone through the roof. Not only does he do it on the defensive side, but the shots, the tough shots that he takes, he is making those now. Some of the ones he wasn't making last year. His shot creation off the dribble has been better. Emmanuel Sharp has been so good.
A dangerous UCF team getting set to face red-hot Arizona. They head out there. That game's going to be a 10 p.m. Eastern time tip on ESPN tomorrow. Arizona has carved out quite the spot atop the Big 12. Can they keep it rolling, King?
Yeah, this will be a tough one, but I do think they can. I was impressed with the way UCF bounced back after that horrible loss to Kansas. They did a good job against Colorado, but going to Arizona, not an easy place to play. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough. Like we talked about crazy environments at Texas Tech. Arizona is one of those tough environments. How will UCF respond? We will see. Keyshawn Hall, Darius Johnson, those 2 guys are going to have a big night. But if they don't, I got to give the nod to Arizona with the way Tommy Lloyd has those boys rolling.
All right, that's all the time we have today. King McClure, safe travels. Look forward to having you back in studio next week. We hope you all enjoy another exciting week of Big 12 hoops. We will see you next time on Inside the 12.